Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, and we're now extremely pleased to be able to go once again this week to Athens, Greece, and to talk to one of the most successful, distinguished observers of Greek and indeed European political and economic affairs, and that's Michael Chiotinis. And we are very proud to have Michael with us, because if you go back and look at the events of the past couple of months, you will see that not only has Michael been an extraordinary reporter, but that he has got a gift for forecasting and looking ahead and actually predicting some of the things that would be happening. And I think his track record will stand up against anybody's, and that he's going to prove to be better. So again, very, very honored and proud to have him with us. And now let's see what Michael has to report this week. Michael.
Hello, Webster.
Greece is a little bit out of the news, but you help us to catch up.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the intro. What we're facing right now is the uncharted territory of a Greek default. Now, it's not exactly uncharted, because Greece has typically defaulted twice during the last 3 years. 3 years. The PSI, this haircut that was done in the beginning of 2012, was a typical default. It was a credit event anyway.
Michael, let me just ask you, because some people say, well, why do you need a second haircut when you had that haircut before? And my understanding with that is that haircut really didn't cut off very much hair.
This haircut that was done in 2012, it was part of the second bailout, and it had very big problems. The problems were that only debt to private holders was cut, and that included all the pension funds in Greece, all the money that have in account that have public institutions in bank accounts, like universities or hospitals. And before this haircut, much part of the debt, of the outstanding debt, was already transferred to public institutions, to the public sector, to the official sector. Bonds were bought by governments, or this EFSF or these ESM, these institutions made up by the Europeans to bail out Greece. So these bonds were not haircut. Only the bonds held by private institutions were haircut at that point, and it wasn't much of the Greek debt. It was a small part of the Greek debt that was haircut, about 50%. So,
and when you say these public institutions, that includes the European Central Bank, and then these other things, the European Stability Mechanism, I guess it is. In other words, European Union institutions. So they lost nothing, only the pension funds, the universities, the hospitals in Greece.
Yes, and it was the first. It was a default. The credit default swaps were triggered, but it was the first default and haircut that had as a result to the domestic holder of debt to be hit, not the foreign creditor. Basically, what was hit was Greek domestic institutions. So we actually and Greek banks. So we actually did nothing. And then we borrowed more to recapitalize the banks that were haircut. So that was crazy. That was nothing, really. Now,
okay, and where are we now then?
Where are we now? Right now, we're facing an actual default. A default that is not going to be agreed upon, or not in the context of an agreement. And there's no legal issues, but bank runs and things like that can complicate things. Right now, let me tell you, Syriza, this government that we have, is obviously threatening to change the state of affairs in Europe. Okay, it's challenging the status quo. I think that the Europeans, and especially the Germans, are determined to make this government fall. The Eurogroup agreement of the 20th of February, this Eurogroup agreement that we had in the past a few weeks ago, was a small crack in this unchallenged status quo. And I think they're trying to roll back this thing. They're trying either to make Syriza part of the system or make the government fall. And I think that's a very big danger. We have government revenue has collapsed during this the January and February, and we have there's a very tough situation fiscally. There are debt payments due inside March. Actually, the finance minister Varoufakis said that somehow we will squeeze some funds in order to repay the IMF, because no one has defaulted on the IMF before. But payments to the European Central Bank that has actually the ECB has ownership of some bonds, many bonds that are due in the near future will not be made. Varoufakis says we will not pay back the ECB. The ECB should give an extension. It has happened before with Ireland, I think, but the problem is actually political. It's not economic. That's my view. The European institutions, this priesthood around Europe, along with the European Central Bank, they have to decide what is to be done. The big Euro powers like Germany. Germany is a country that pushes things towards this one-dimensional view of austerity, and more austerity. In my view, they are trying to get rid of the Syriza government, or put it in the tracks of the previous government. But I think things are going towards a fall of the government. They're trying to make things to foment panic and make the government fall. And in my view, the problem is that they may think that in the eventuality of a collapse of the Syriza government, they can revive the old system, the conservatives and all these austerity vampires. Well, they can't. They will get centrifuge forces, and the euro will break up if they try to do this. And someone has it's in the hands of Europeans and people in other countries to change the policy of their governments, because they will produce phenomena that that have to be avoided.
So a general that would of course mean the beginning of another phase of a general breakdown crisis, right? Just everybody here in the U.S., everybody's gloating that the crisis is over and full employment is back. Well, there's no full employment. So Germany, do we know exactly where this is coming from? Is it Merkel? Is it Schäuble? Is it this Deutsche Bank group around different, the Weidmann group in the Bundesbank? What would you say about that? Any idea?
Merkel. I think Merkel is an opportunist. She goes where the things go. So I think it's Schäuble, controlled by I don't know.
And of course the British, right? This would be self-serving for the British and the U.S. All right, so that's a worrisome piece of news. So thank you, Michael, and we'll be back next week, okay?
Thank you.
You hang in there. See you soon. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.